Valerie Lockett-Slupski says she's the grandmother of 4 of the children. She says they were at the center because their parents were working overnight. She says there were 2 girls and 2 boys. The chief fire inspector says the fire appears to have started in the living room on the 1st floor. Investigators are looking at the possibility the fire was set, but say it's too early to make any determination as to the cause of the blaze. Ann Carrick, Fox News.
New reports suggest one guard who had worked 5 days straight with overtime was watching financier Jeffrey Epstein the night before he died behind bars. Meanwhile, New York City's medical examiner says the autopsy is complete without a final determination.
Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Barbara Sampson says at the request of the legal team representing Epstein and with the awareness of a federal prosecutor, she allowed noted pathologist Dr. Michael Baden to observe the autopsy examination. She says it's a routine practice.
Fox's Rob Dawson. The Tennessee convict who escaped prison was caught. Curtis Ray Watson is accused of killing 64-year-old Corrections Administrator Deborah Johnson before he made his escape on a tractor. Corrections Commissioner Tony Parker.
Deborah Johnson was 38 years in this department. I had never met anyone that was more professional, more dedicated to the mission of the Tennessee Department of Corrections than Deborah Johnson.
A tip led police to the soybean farm where Watson surrendered. A gold medalist who could represent the U.S. in the Tokyo Olympics took a knee during the national anthem at the Pan American Games in Lima. U.S. fencer Racing Bowden says he wanted to call attention to racism, gun control, and the mistreatment of immigrants. This is Fox News.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the Office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Coast 360 introduces our new youth banking program. Give your kids and teens a head start with Kids 360 and Teen 360, a program designed to help your child develop smart financial habits and learn about money. Introduce them to banking and get them on a path towards a thriving financial future. Plus, new youth members get a special lunch tote just in time for back to school while supplies last. Learn more at coast360fcu.com or visit your favorite member center. Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive. Terms and conditions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Another big draw at the Iowa State Fair for a front-running presidential hopeful.
By far, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders attracted the most fairgoers on the main concourse.
Yep, I need your help in order for us to win here in Iowa.
An enthusiasm the 2016 Democratic runner-up hopes to keep up 6 months out from the Democratic caucuses. Billionaire activist Tom Steyer and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio are also hoping to tap into a progressive energy.
If people hear something about change for working people, they're going to feel it, I think, in a lot of the same ways in rural Iowa, the same way as they will in New York.
Republican challenger to President Trump, former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld, also made his case to potential caucus goers. At the Iowa State Fair, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The Pentagon says Sergeant Scott Copenhaver is the first U.S. service member killed in combat in Iraq this year. The 35-year-old Marine from Colorado died Saturday after being engaged by enemy small arms fire. New Jersey's governor and the mayor of Newark want to give city residents bottled water after tests show water filters may not offer enough protection against lead.
The EPA says drinking water in a few locations in the city still tested high for lead. And out of an abundance of caution, bottled water should be used for drinking and cooking. Governor Phil Murphy and Mayor Ross Baraka say they're complying with the EPA's demand to provide bottled water, but they say they will need help from the federal government to provide and distribute the water. Newark has been dealing with elevated lead levels in water for nearly 3 years. The EPA says it's not sure why the nationally certified filters don't appear to be working as expected. In New York, Rob Dawson, Fox News.
The Fast and Furious spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw, is #1 at the box office. The film earned $25 million this weekend. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to Tall Tales for Monday, August 12. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. He returns in 56 days. That's the countdown. 56 days from today, Bob will be back in this chair, and we'll all be enjoying his perspective and his entertaining ways. In the meantime, we've got a show for you. Actually, too much to cover today. Lots going on because we had the whole weekend. You know, whatever happened last Friday and then over the weekend. But, just want to get started on, there's two stories we have from the weekend that touch on the Second Amendment. So let's get to those right now. One of them was in yesterday's PDN on page 7. President Trump signals support for background checks. And the other one was the Saturday editorial from USA Today editorial board that appeared as the editorial for the Pacific Daily News on Saturday, which was entitled "Embrace Changes, Red Flag Laws Can Prevent Mass Shootings." So let's go ahead and take a look at this. President Trump signals support for background checks. He also reassures NRA on gun owner rights. This is coming out of the Associated Press. President Donald Trump said Friday he believes he has influence to rally Republicans around stronger federal background check laws as Congress and the White House work on a response to last weekend's mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. At the same time, Trump said he had assured the National Rifle Association that its gun rights views would be, quote, fully represented and respected. He said he was hopeful the NRA would not be an obstacle to strengthening the nation's gun laws. Trump has promised to lead on tougher gun control measures before, including after the 2018 Parkland, Florida school shooting, but little has come of it. His comments in the wake of the twin massacres marked his most optimistic and supportive words in favor of more stringent gun laws, though he left the details vague and it remained to be seen how much political capital Trump would throw behind marshaling Republicans on the issue. He said Friday he now is looking for, quote, very meaningful background checks, but is not considering a resurrection of an assault weapons ban. He also said he believes lawmakers will support, quote, red flag laws that allow guns to be removed from those who may be a danger to themselves and others. Quote, I see a better feeling right now toward getting something meaningful done, Trump told reporters when asked why the political environment was different now. Quote, I have a greater influence now over the Senate and the House, he said at the White House. And there's more to the story. I don't see the second half of it. It's here somewhere in my... I think it's on the back of something that I included in the stuff for today. And let me just take a real quick look to see if it's here. I've been juggling stuff, and I'm getting better at juggling. That's for sure. Yeah, I remember it was on the back of something else that I wanted to bring to you, where this article continued. Well, you know, I think that's going to have to do. Anyway, that was the beginning of the article. And the other article, Embrace Changes, from the PDN on Saturday. Red flag laws can prevent mass shootings. There we go. For a prime example of how red flag laws might stop some mass shootings, consider the savagery of gunman Nicholas Cruz in Parkland, Florida. Dozens of threatening signals were flashing about the once expelled high school student who would later confess to gunning down 17 students and adults at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School last year. One blatant tip-off, a YouTube posting by a Nicholas Cruz, the same spelling of Nicholas with a K, vowing, quote, to be a professional school shooter, end quote. No one did anything. Red flag laws allow a court to issue an extreme risk protection order to temporarily confiscate firearms from people deemed a grave risk to themselves or others. A judge acts only after careful due process considerations. Since the Parkland shootings, Florida and 11 other states quickly embraced such laws. In all, 17 states now have them. Just one day after the law took effect in Vermont, a judge used it to block gun purchases by an 18-year-old man accused of keeping a diary he titled, quote, Journal of an Active Shooter, end quote, and making plans to kill a record number of people at a local high school. Emerging evidence suggests that such laws, if they existed in Ohio and Texas, might have made a difference in last weekend's shootings in Dayton and El Paso. Dayton gunman Connor Betts, 24, had a history of threatening violence against girlfriends and, years back, compiled a rape and hit list of potential victims, former classmates said. A red flag law like the one Republican Governor Mike DeWine now says he wants might have separated Betts from the AR-15 style firearm he used to slaughter 9 people. Weeks before the El Paso shooting, according to CNN, the mother of alleged gunman Patrick Crusius, 21, called police about her concerns that her son owned an AK-type weapon. If Texas had a red flag law, police could have advised her about a legal pathway for having that gun taken away. Research has shown that extreme risk protective orders could also have a direct bearing on reducing suicides, which made up more than half of America's record high number of nearly 40,000 gun deaths in 2017. Even a modest change on protection orders is worth doing. It would still constitute the toughest gun law by Congress in years. It would usefully shatter the NRA's the NRA's aura of invincibility, and it might save lives. And that's a couple of items in the national news on the question of Second Amendment rights. And so, having said that, I just wanted to ask, are you Catholic? Real Joe, are you Catholic? No, that's all right. You know, this is not a, it's just that about everybody has, whether you're Catholic or not, you have probably made up and had some opinion of whether you, what kind of weight you give to what the Pope has to say about anything. I mean, you have an opinion, and that's okay. You've got an opinion, which means you're paying attention, and you're alive, and you can read, and you care. So that's good. Regardless of what your opinion may be, the Pope said something, and it was reported over the weekend. No, today, on page 22 of the Guam Daily Post. He said, Pope Francis called for a united Europe in an interview published by Italian daily La Stampa on Friday, saying recent political rhetoric has echoed that of Nazi Germany. Quote, "I am concerned because we hear speeches that resemble those of Hitler in 1934, he said. Quote, "Us first, we. These are frightening thoughts." It is not the first time the pontiff has made such remarks, but his comments published last Friday came as Italy's populist government appeared to be on the verge of collapse. On Thursday, Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini, the most powerful politician in Italy, called for Parliament to be dissolved and asked the president to order snap elections that could make Italy's government lean even further right. Anyway, there's more about the Italian. Who cares? That's Italian politics. But you'll hear that theme come up every now and then on this program, and that is extreme speech, extreme positions, and that's what he was referring to. Is drawing a line between us and them, when there's really just an us, if we are all part of a democratic society. And so, let's go on to Dami Ikatni. PDN has seen fit to use the USA Today editorial boards. Editorial today entitled "Hackers Pick Capital One's Pocket." They should have used a title of "Hackers Pick Capital One's Wallet." What's in your wallet? Well, anyway, I'm not going to read this, except it says it's one of the nation's largest issuers of credit cards because of its catchy marketing slogan. And then a lone hacker penetrated its firewall to acquire sensitive data on more than 100 million card customers and applicants. Well, that's a good day's work. Probably made some money. But PDN did over the weekend issue a local editorial. So I'm going to give them a chance today to earn a star because of the local editorial that appeared over the weekend. So it's called "Are We All Aboard?" And this is the Pacific Sunday News opinion from the editors of that publication. "Cruise industry, if we build it, will they come?" Before Guam invests heavily in developing a small ship cruise industry, we must carefully evaluate whether a regional cruise industry is viable and sustainable. In 2013, 802 cruises operated in Asia, according to Melanie Mendiola, administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority. That number grew to 2,000 cruises in 2018, and that growth offers an ideal opportunity for Guam and Micronesia. Guam and the other islands can attract Asia's growing interest in cruises and steer them in the direction of the culture and nature Micronesia has to offer, she said. Quote, "It's time for us to make it happen," Mendiola said recently. Governor Lulian Guerrero signed an executive order to create a working group to develop a strategy for a regional small ship cruise industry, including GITA, the Port Authority of Guam, Guam Visitors Bureau, the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, and a local business representative, with a goal to boost the economy, create more jobs, and diversify tourism. But will the growth in Asia translate into a sustainable cruise industry for Guam and Micronesia? At the moment, our island and the region lack the infrastructure to really make a cruise industry work. Other issues include immigration, medical care, and how local vendors are paid when ships visit. The Port Authority is negotiating with a company to provide architect and engineering work to develop Hotel Wharf as the primary receiving area for cruise ships, paid for with a federal grant and bond money the port already has borrowed. But if we build it, will cruise ships come? And are other islands in the region willing and able to invest in the necessary developments? While the cruise ship industry has a very real potential to bolster our tourism industry, grow jobs, and strengthen our economy, perhaps the best course would be to let private companies make the determination of whether it will work for Guam and the region. If the private sector views the cruise ship industry as viable and profitable, they will work to make it happen. Then the governments of Guam and the region can do their part to support and bolster the industry. I'm not impressed by this logic. I'm really not. The government, it's our elected leaders and the appointees to the positions in charge of the agencies that would be involved in managing an extension of the tourism sector really have to get out in front of the issue and know what there is to know in order to protect the public's interest. If we wait until companies start with the proposals and we follow the companies through use of public lands, drive the structure, the local structure in the market, so that they are able to sequester the revenues and the profits into their own hands, and maybe shield some of the revenues from taxability. We'll be just behind the 8 ball. There's no reason to stick our heads in the sand and not know what's going on. What the PDN editorial board appears to be saying is that our government officials should not even know what they need to know about it until the private sector begins to move. And by creating the working group to develop a strategy, then at least we know we'll come to some grip on what it is that we, as a host location, needs to do in order to make it work for us. And so I don't agree with this at all. I think that the work that the government's doing to get started and try to get out ahead of the issue is exactly what needs to be done. We can only do it for ourselves, but we have to have knowledgeable people to know what we can do, and then our governor can communicate with regional governments to find out how much they're interested in, because it may simply be a matter of the size of the ship. Maybe it's not going to be a 2,000-person ship. Maybe it'll be a 500-person ship or a 300-person ship. And so, and we also have the concerns of weather. Yes, the China coast and the Philippines and, countries in the region do have storms. There is a rainy season, monsoon season, typhoon season. In this area, typhoon season. And so no matter what we schedule, may not be able to keep it going, simply because of the vagaries of weather. With airplanes, you can move, you're moving smaller numbers of people, and you can cancel or postpone for 12 hours waiting for the passage of a storm. But not so with a cruise ship. So no, I don't agree with this, the way that they've addressed this at all. Let's take a look at what the Post has to say today. They say, let's help provide safe environment for students as they head back to school. This week, tens of thousands of public and private school students will begin the new school year. Motorists, we ask you to watch out for students walking to bus stops or to school. We ask motorists to be patient if the roads to schools get jammed with students who are being driven to or from school. We also ask motorists to drive more carefully and respect 15 to 25 mile per hour speed limits near bus stops and school zones. We need fellow motorists to be vigilant regarding errant drivers and call 911 if they see erratic driving behavior. Many of our public school students will be in bus stops before sunrise, as some public schools start before 7 a.m. Roads might be slippery and driving conditions might be poor. Motorists, slow down. Some of these students will be on the road with little or no protection from the elements. We ask motorists to avoid splattering students with rain runoff. Parents and guardians, don't let your young children walk to or wait in a bus stop alone. Last school year, a child in elementary school was abducted and raped in a multi-residential neighborhood in Tamuning. A few basic safety measures can also help save a child from harm, including inappropriate relationships and other forms of abuse in a school environment. Parents can get to know their neighbors and work out a system to take turns keeping watch at a bus stop. Some parents already do this, but we need more parents to be more engaged. More efforts to carpool also may help students in your immediate neighborhood. Parents, dangers may lurk within a school environment, and some of these red flags might not be readily apparent to a child. Give your students an age-appropriate briefing so they will be aware of what's considered inappropriate touching, inappropriate friendships with teachers and school staff, abusive language, bullying, or other issues at school. Empower your students to share with you incidents that make them uncomfortable in the school setting. Guide them through ways to remember and take notes of any such incident. Extend a helping hand. Concerned citizens and Good Samaritans, there are practical ways to help students and their families. You could donate gas cards, umbrellas, raincoats, new shoes, school uniforms, or other costly school supplies, such as calculators and waterproof binders. Call the school in your village and see how you can give help through the parent-teacher organizations or the school's student support office. Let's help our students get off to a good start. So there is a reach out to motorists. Motorists, how about drivers? Motorists, it's like people out on a Sunday drive. Drivers, motor vehicle operators. Hey, parents and guardians, yes. It's a reminder, don't assume the kids know everything, and they're depending on adult supervision and adult guidance to get through this time in their life. And yes, concerned citizens and Good Samaritans may be out looking for some way to be involved. I remember last week we were having a discussion about cleaning the bus stops. And I looked over at the bus stop that's near my house, several doors down, and I see the mothers walking their little kids to the bus stop, and cars sometimes will park in the shade of the trees in my yard while they're waiting for the bus to come, and they'll go pull up at when it's really bright, sunny, but the car is cooled because it's been sitting in the shade for the 15 or 20 minutes while they wait for the bus to come. We all kind of get along, but I noticed that while the grass is cut around the bus stop, nobody's taken a broom or a rake or they haven't flushed down the floor or the seat, and so it's not really ready. Maybe I'll have a chance to get over there and do that tonight, since it's important to me, and not apparently to other people, but maybe I can get out there with a broom and a couple of gallons of solution and rinse water and freshen the place up for tonight for use first thing tomorrow morning. My kids are not using that bus stop. My wife drives them down to the transfer station in Hagatnya. So, Zami Ikatni, I'd say, despite my efforts to give PDN a chance to redeem itself, The coveted blue star goes today to the Guam Daily Post. Yes. Yeah, we all can do something. And so it's 4:30 and a good time to take a break here, and we'll come back after these messages with more Tall Tales.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new ciabatta collection. How do you want it?
I'll take the slam poultry.
Sure. Italian ciabatta with mozzarella. When hunger reigns, you're my favorite umbrella. Tasty garlic steak and provolone. With you, my taste buds are never alone. Savory chicken pesto, you have my affection. For you complete the ciabatta collection. Thank you. That was the new ciabatta collection by Subway. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Tall Tales. Let's see what else we have on our list today. We might get into the budget. As I was taking a look at, I've got a whole lot of items. There's some good columns that appeared over the weekend, but let's take a quick look at the budget and some of the well, actually so much sort of goes back and touches on the budget. And let's see. As I juggle things here, let's see. Actually, we're almost ready to jump into the card, but let's take a look at this. Today in the Pacific Daily News, Ken Leon Guerrero posted a comment and a column entitled "No Sign of Positive Change." And here we are. It's August, and it should be obvious to us what it is, what the difference is between current leadership and historic leadership. But he's saying no sign of positive change. The quote, "I'm a politician, which means I'm a cheat and a liar, and when I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops," from the book The Hunt for Red October, reminds me of the monthly address by Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. This is Ken's column here. No sign of positive change. That's how it begins. And it continues. She said, quote, "Serving as your governor has taught me many things. Progress is achievable, but it is certainly not easy. It takes more than just hard work. It takes dedication, focus, knowledge, sacrifice, and creativity. It takes passion and compassion. It takes steadfast courage to take risks, but it also takes humility," end quote. 8 months into the new administration, there are still lessons to be learned because we don't see any signs of dedication, focus, knowledge, sacrifice, or creativity. The only dedication seems to be the governor's and lieutenant governor's efforts to reward campaign workers with high salaries. Esther Agagi got almost got a $41,000 pay raise before public opinion derailed it. Angel Sablan got a $21,000 pay raise under the public's radar, and he and the Mayor's Council of Guam have resisted any efforts to right-size his compensation based on his job requirements and performance. Most other directors also got large raises, and the governor has let us know that more raises, including one for Agagi, are coming. The only focus we are seeing is the focus to make sure companies that supported her campaign are rewarded generously. Right out of the gate, the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration pushed through the bill to allow casino-style gambling at the Liberation Carnival and passed a corporate welfare law to make GRMC a mandatory part of the GovGuam health care coverage. During the Calvo administration, politicians tried to replace GMH's main electrical distribution panel for $6 million taxpayer dollars, even though GPA engineers inspected it and reported it safe and in working condition. The Leon Guerrero administration is focused on that panel as well as a way of rewarding some loyal campaign supporter with a generous pork barrel. Only now the price tag is $11 million. If there is any sign of knowledge, we don't see it. Otherwise, they'd know they can't spend like tomorrow is never going to come. Because it will, as the politicians of Puerto Rico learned when the Federal Control Board took over their government's financial operations. Sacrifice is the one thing the administration and the legislature have gotten frighteningly good at, asking taxpayers to sacrifice the future of their children and grandchildren so they can enjoy spending tomorrow's money today. Already one bond has been sold, and contrary to campaign promises to roll back the business privilege tax increase, it's here to stay. And soon it will be joined by a host of new taxes and fee increases as politicians work to fund their grandiose budget. The creative part comes when they start running for re-election and try to tell us why they weren't able to keep their campaign promises. To the current generation of politicians whose actions speak so loud, we can't hear a word they're saying. Oh, to the current generation of politicians whose actions speak so loud we can't hear a word they are saying, I offer this thought. Today is ruled by politicians. Tomorrow will be ruled by voters. Ken Leon Guerrero is a resident of Santa Rita. No sign of positive change. And Andre Bainum was in yesterday's Pacific Sunday News, Voice of the People, with his column, his perspective on Guam politics doom us to endless cycle of distractions. In the movie Groundhog Day, Phil, played by Bill Murray, finds himself stuck in a loop where a series of unwanted and irritating events appear to be occurring in exactly the same way every day. At first, Phil is oblivious to his situation due to a myriad of comedic distractions, but soon his predicament begins to become clear, and his awareness moves to shock, then to anger, and finally hopelessness. Although the movie is a work of fiction, some eerie comparisons can be extended to our predicament here on Guam. In the movie, Phil is called to report on whether a groundhog will see its shadow, thus extending winter by 6 weeks. Most people hope that the rat-like vermin doesn't see its shadow, signaling an early spring and good fortune. On Guam, the people are called every 2 years to vote for public servants that will carry out various government operations, with the belief that things will change for the better. Unfortunately, like the movie, nothing changes, and we are left to live each day the same as before. Soon we become oblivious to the road conditions in our villages, oblivious to the dilapidated schools we send our children to, and oblivious to the mismanagement of our tax dollars, which has led to an ever-increasing taxes and a higher cost of living. We are distracted by spin and excuses, by the people that define the news we consume, and are inundated with issues that have no direct impact on our daily lives. Balloons, trees, and anti-military sentiment have taken up the public discourse. When the fog from the distractions finally dissipates, we become shocked to find that public servants insist on flying first class in exchange for serving the people, and that huge raises were handed out to some well-connected individuals. We then become angered when the campaign promise to lower the cost of living on Guam by right-sizing the government and cutting taxes are discarded, and we are told, quote, if you don't like it, you should run for governor. Like Phil's efforts in the movie to change his situation, we blog, comment, and post our dissatisfaction on social media in the hopes that doing so would create a different outcome. Sadly, the next day we drive to work on damaged streets and send our children to dilapidated schools and watch hopelessly as our tax dollars are mismanaged by self-serving politicians. This happens day after day, month after month, and year after year. In the movie, the realization that every day is exactly like the day before nearly drove Phil crazy. The movie ends happily when Phil realizes he's a good person and worthy of more. Sadly, this is where the comparisons end. On Guam, our public servants have not yet come to the realization that the good, hard-working people of Guam are worthy of the basic services we pay for. They have not yet realized that continuing to place the burden of operating an oversized and ineffective government on the backs of the taxpayers will lead to a diminished quality of life for the people. Until our public servants realize that the current size and course of government operations are unsustainable, the people will be relegated to living every day exactly like the day, month, and year before. Andre Bainham is a resident of Talafofo. That's his article, Guam Politics Doom Us to the Endless Cycle of Distractions. And with that, we've got a caller on line 1. Welcome to Tall Tales.
Good afternoon, Tall Tales.
Hey, welcome.
How are you, sir?
I am doing all right. I was concerned that I would be the verbal equivalent of all thumbs today, but no, I'm actually able to cope. So things are good. Things are good, and school starts tomorrow, and so there's a downside to that, and that's the way that we have to kind of shuffle our lives around to make it all happen. But that's what happens outside when I'm not here on the radio. But how are you doing today?
Oh, not bad.
The sun is out.
Yeah, I know, but you instigated me to call because you were mentioning something about what the politicians were saying during their campaign, and they do just the opposite once they get in office.
Yeah.
And let me give you something that came to my mind is we have to name that road past Naval Hospital, that very curvy road down there.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, I think it's, is that Murray Drive or Snake Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call that Snake Road, right?
Well, I think it's got a name. I think it's called Murray Drive. I don't know who Murray is.
Further.
Murray Drive's up
further.
Up. Okay.
But anyway, what we should do is just name that road Politicians Highway, because it is as crooked as politicians are. You know. But
and it's not even high. It's not even a highway. It's sort of a...
Yeah, that's right.
Crawling on its belly low. You know, we know these people, and we know that they're skillful, and so, you know, that's how they got so many votes to get in. And then we do expect them to put in people who are competent and motivated and able to actually take the agencies they're in charge of and lead them to new levels of relevance and, you know, production. But it just doesn't happen. Like Andre Bainham is saying, it's the same day after day, year after year. That's why we all celebrate so much when they do something like pave the road, you know, from Marine Drive over to Route 16 there by the Harmon Loop.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we celebrated, although they just put 3 inches of blacktop and only, 22 feet wide, and no shoulder, no drainage, no, remember they put it down and then they had to come back later and dig out the drainage pond so that when it rains hard, it doesn't flood, because it flooded the first week. I think the first 3 days.
I guarantee you those reflectors will not last too long either. They're going to start flying away or disappearing or losing their reflection.
Well, and that's something that they already know will happen. There've been enough of those markers put down on the road, and we even not only local experience but national experience. How often do you have to restripe a road? You know it. But for some reason, despite the best, you know, the numbers of people who work at Public Works in highway engineering and highway maintenance and highway safety. There's 3 divisions of Public Works that work on highways, concern themselves with the marks on the road. And with all those people, with all those brains and all those people showing up for work every day, nobody seems to remember how often you have to put it, how to schedule regular restriping of a road. And that's what gets me. It's if they would just take care of the routines, we'd all be happy. You know?
And also I've been screaming bloody murder for the last year or so about why we got, like you said, we got employees in Public Works that know a little bit about welding, about how to cut metal. Why don't they put a metal grate over that sinking manhole cover on Marine Drive?
Oh.
It seems like the asphalt is getting higher and higher, or the manhole cover is getting lower and lower, but it's just dropping somehow. And we don't need a contractor to be hired to do that job when we already got employees in the DPW.
You know, it's,
you know,
yeah, we knew that the first time we hit it. That was your thought, my first thought, the first time I hit that. And it's still there. And I remember that road was repaved during Ricky's time, East of Ganya, right? In the middle lane?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know the solution is you take the manhole cover and you build a flange, and you can just tack weld the pieces to bring that thing up to grade. Just the size of, you know what the difference is going to be. You weld to the top of the you know where the manhole's supposed to fit, and you just extend that with a flange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
and then it will. Then every time you run over it, it just stays there, at the grade. You don't bounce it by dropping your tires down into it and bounce it like a ball. And in fact, what you're doing is every time anyone drops into the hole and hits that manhole cover, it's stressing the box, the cement box under it.
Right now, I just hope that the director of Public Works will just drive through that manhole and break his suspension. And I want him to learn his lesson. Why isn't he doing his job?
Well,
he's got employees in his department that can fix that manhole problem. But he's not. I guess it doesn't bother him until he breaks his suspension, or until he causes an accident by slamming on his brake and then somebody rear-ends him.
I think that this actually has gone a lot further than we think, because as a condition of being able to resume spending federal money, highway money, we had to accept the presence of Parsons Brinkerhoff. It's professional construction management and management firm for DPW, so all of its expenditures would have to go through this. But this is, we're talking about 12 years ago. I'm not quite sure if it's still in now. But sometime during that period, you would think that the federally funded highway projects would have been required to be all the shortcomings that they signed off on, to accept the project as done, even though it had these flaws, that they would have had to go back and fix those flaws with federal money. But it's never been fixed, and those are the numbered routes.
Right now, it seems like they cannot fix EPAL Road also. There's already federal money already put aside to widen and repave EPAL Road all the way down to where the Hilton is from Marine Corps Drive. And that federal money is just sitting in the bank somewhere waiting for the government of Guam to come up with their matching fund, because it's supposed to have a GovGuam matching fund. But they cannot seem to find a matching fund to put together the federal money to fix EPA Road?
I don't.
Because every time they have a little bit of money, they wind up reserving it and spending it for some useless purposes. Like you Daryl, it's your fault. You send your lieutenant governor to the gay pride parade twice in New York. Why did you send him there? I heard you bought him a ticket.
Wow. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Because I know I saw his number on my phone, but I didn't think he was calling me for my permission. But you're outing me here. Tom, I have a condo on EPA Road. I've signed off on the DPW, efforts there. You want to hang on? We've got to take a break here. You want to hang on and stay with me after the break?
Hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. I'll be here.
Joe, let's go to a break, and we'll be right back with Tom here on Tall Tales.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And we're back with Tall Tales. And before I start dancing to the music, let's get back to Tom, who's on line 1. Tom, you must have been reading the PDN today. When before Tall Tales, you saw the page 1 story on DPW?
Yeah. How close are you to your microphone? Sometimes your volume goes down.
Oh, maybe I got to get a little closer. How's that? Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's better.
Okay, thank you. Did you happen to get incited to speak about DPW when you looked at the PDN page 1 story this morning? DPW takes long-term look at floods.
Actually, I did not read that. I don't have a PDN. I only have the Post.
Well, you have good taste.
To my home, so
you have good taste. But
article.
In this article by Jarek Sablan, it's news to him, and apparently it's news to Vince Areola. It said, Vince Areola said 4 areas that have been known for years to have major flooding will be looked at to find long-term solutions to the flooding. Polaris Point, Barcina Street and Mariso, Route 10 in Barragata near Wendy's, and Pago Bay. Well, this was already known. They knew it. They knew it as soon as they built it, and it was designed. Each of those roadways were designed. They've been resurfaced. They've been studied. They've been rebuilt. They know. They know exactly what the problems are, and they knew it the first time it rained after they were built. What the actual, compared to what the engineering projection would be on how the design was proper. Now, I'm not saying that these, except for Barcinas Road in Molesto, why they put a 90-degree turn, because they didn't go in and either condemn the land or they didn't make a ponding basin further up to slow the water down so it wouldn't rush through. Yeah, these are real problems. When you have 100 inches of rain a year and you can get, like we did last week, 11 inches in 4 days or something like that, 5 days. You get these kinds of problems are problems of road construction in the tropics. And engineers, it's a specialty area in engineering. And you get the Army Corps, and you get the environmental people, and you get the construction engineers to figure out how high the road has to be, how big the culvert has to be, and what's going to be the impact of having this water rush out to the reef flat. Well, okay, but it's going to go there anyway. And unless you're going to put it into wetlands, like some kind of rice paddy, if you were going to keep issuing permits to allow people to build houses in the floodplain, so the river has to stay within its banks, that means the velocity is going to be faster, and the damage is going to be it's going to be more damaging when it gets to the bridge. And so it's not like I'm not a specialist at this, but I know it. And so here's this long article in the PDN about DPW looking at floods, and it's the same as what you're saying.
That's the lowest point. Flooding is still happening. It just happened last week.
But if you ever drive by there when the road is flooded, you will see that as you go further along, the level of the water on the road and the level of the swamp, the wetland that's there, and this on the inland side of the road, that the wetland is actually 2 feet lower than the level of the water on the road. You have to clear the silt and grass that's built up in the drainage that parallels the road. Because once you get it over to the wetland will absorb it, and some of the water goes down. It falls vertically with gravity through the wetland. It doesn't have to run out like a river. But they don't do that. When I drive through there, I look at that. And sometimes take a look at that sometime if you drive through there after a heavy rain. On the inland side, near the intersection, the water is high and standing, and as you drive further north, just about maybe 500 feet or so, 600, 700 feet, you see the wetland, and the water level is lower. It's not like there's no place for the water to go. It's that the drainage ditch isn't maintained. And if I can see it, why can't they see it? And if I know it, why can't they get out there ahead of the rain? Why do they have to wait for the rain to tell them? And
it seems like they don't understand that that's their job,
Well, remember the newspaper Friday, was it, that showed the crew up in Santa Rita clearing that mudslide so people could come in and out. So DPW does have backhoe. And they can contract with companies that can go out and do that work. You just have a standing, open-ended job order. Okay, we're going to do this. Even down in Molesso, you got to get out there and you got to clear that culvert, and it might take a small excavator to get that stuff out of the way if it's already starting to rain and stuff's coming down to clear the debris that's building up at the culvert. But if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes, and that's the cost of the construction, the ongoing operation of that road.
Just like anywhere on Marine Corps Drive also, the storm drain, that meadow grate that's supposed to let the storm water go into the storm drain, some of them are just clogged up with gravel and dirt and trash.
And grass, because they bush cut.
And our DPW doesn't go out there to clean that grate.
Well, Tom, we know this, and everyone knows this, and thank you for bringing it up.
All right,
but it's just about 5 o'clock and time for Fox News and our great halftime show. And then right after the halftime show, we'll be back with more Tall Tales. Thanks, Tom, for the call.
Okay.
And we will talk with you on the other side.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
How could it happen? I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. Financier Jeffrey Epstein's apparent suicide behind bars is under investigation. New reports suggest the prison was understaffed and guards were overworked.
Epstein's death comes less than 24 hours after court documents were unsealed implicating several powerful men, including former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, and Britain's Prince Andrew.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. The manhunt for an escaped Tennessee convict is over. The district attorney says Curtis Ray Watson faces new charges in the death of a corrections administrator killed before Watson escaped on a tractor.
Curtis Ray Watson went from being an escaped convict to being a criminal defendant facing charges of first-degree murder, aggravated sexual battery, especially aggravated burglary, and escape.
A tip led police to Watson and he surrendered without incident. North Korea has reportedly fired a series of short-range ballistic missiles over the past several weeks. President Trump says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un apologized in a letter and suggested the missile launches had been prompted by joint U.S.-South Korean military exercises. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, on Fox News Sunday.
Some of these short-range missile tests also, I'm informed by our NSC, do not violate the Singapore Agreement. And the president has made talk about transparency and accountability, tweeted out that after the South Korea exercises are completed, that he and Kim can get back to the negotiation table. This president's also dangled in front of Kim a more economically prosperous, more free North Korea for his people. So that's up to Kim.
Conway was referring to the 2018 Singapore summit between President Trump and Kim. The Pentagon says Sergeant Scott Copenhaver is the first U.S. service member killed in combat in Iraq this year. The 35-year-old Marine from Colorado died Saturday. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. This is Fox News.
Day, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new ciabatta collection. How do you want it?
I'll take the slam poultry.
Sure. Italian ciabatta with mozzarella. When hunger reigns, you're my favorite umbrella. Tasty garlic steak and provolone. With you, my taste buds are never alone. Savory chicken pesto, you have my affection. For you complete the ciabatta collection. Thank you. That was the new ciabatta collection by Subway. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
President Trump reflects on the death of his brother from alcoholism nearly 40 years after his death.
President Trump told the Washington Post that seeing his brother, Fred Trump Jr., deal with his alcoholism has shaped his perspective as his administration attempts to take on addictions. Fred died of a heart attack at the age of 42, but throughout his adult life spent time in the hospital, having had part of his stomach removed. That experience, the president said, has influenced not only President Trump's goals for his administration, but also his personal lifestyle. The president does not drink alcohol, saying he fears he may be genetically susceptible to addiction. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
A former Eagle Scout accused of running a multi-million-dollar opioid drug ring out of his basement near Salt Lake City is set to go on trial today. 29-year-old Aaron Shamo is accused of peddling fentanyl pressed to look like prescription drugs to thousands of people, killing at least one. Shamo's family says he's being wrongly targeted as the sole ringleader. Salmon is likely to be the catch of the day.
Can there be too much of a good thing? Some say the cold waters of the northern Pacific Ocean are getting overrun with salmon. Wild pink salmon populations are surging, according to researchers, and those numbers are being enhanced by the introduction of nearly 2 billion fish from Alaska hatcheries. Critics say this is affecting other species as well. Alan Springer, professor emeritus at the University of Alaska, says he's seeing reproduction effects on seabirds that feed on zooplankton. But state regulators say they see no evidence that the ocean has reached its carrying capacity for the hatchery fish, whose sales averaged $120 million in the years 2012 through 17. Karen McHugh, Fox News.
Kevin Harvick won the NASCAR Consumers Energy 400 at Michigan International Speedway. Harvick finished more than a second ahead of Denny Hamlin. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65% for travel, back to school, a wedding. Do whatever you want with the money. We just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on The Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome to the second half of Tall Tales for this Monday, the 12th of August. And for those of you getting into traffic to do last-minute shopping for your kids going back to school, you know, this is going to be the last day without having all those parents doing after-school activities and whatnot, and the students on the roads themselves driving, and the seniors, juniors, and seniors driving. So enjoy your commute this evening because it's going to be really different tomorrow. Before the break, I was kind of fooling around with my access to the Facebook Live. It kept like glitching out on me, my own machine. But now I can see some of the comments, and I want to welcome folks who have joined us on Facebook Live and let you in on some of the comments that I'm enjoying here behind the scenes. Marivic Perea says, Hafa de Guam, and happy to have you with us this afternoon. Nate Horn was right with us right at the very beginning. Then I started picking up some comments from Pierre Tarine, and he was commenting about my little question about, are you Catholic and do you care what the Pope has to say? And he says the Pope should read the works of Cardinal Arinza and Cardinal Sarah, who both have a very different approach than the Peronist Bergoglio. And I'm going to have to take a look at that and do some of that reading myself, because maybe he should have said, you should, me. Before I pull out an article like that. It's just, an article that was in the paper. And so happy to have your response. I will continue this. But we have a caller ready to join us here on line one. Welcome to Tall Tales.
Hello, Daryl. How are you?
Doing fine. Who's this?
This is Frenchie.
Hi, Frenchie. Welcome.
Well, I'm calling because on Friday I was listening to the show, but I was driving. and so I couldn't call you when I was driving. It's too dangerous, especially on the slippery roads of Guam. Yeah. So my point was regarding at the end of the show, you did read a piece from the Washington Post.
Yeah, on Friday, right at the end of the
regarding China from Professor Millward.
Yes.
Of Georgetown University.
Right.
And I was literally chomping at the bits there because I was thinking, well, what is Daryl doing?
What am I doing? What was I doing by reading that article about how we can't have a we can't think of it like in Cold War terms, and we can't think of it as being this is geopolitics, just getting people to think. So what did you think I was trying to do?
Well, I do understand, but then you have to see where the piece that you were pushing is coming from. Number one, WAPO is beside being the I don't hear you. I see you move your lips, but I don't hear you.
You don't hear me now?
Now I hear you. Okay.
Right. Go ahead.
So no problem. I thought we had a little technical difficulty. So I happen to know Professor Millward not well, but I've met him several times when I was at Stanford back in the late 80s, early 90s when he was preparing his PhD. And I've met him because he was a good friend of mine, Professor Helster, who was the Dean of French and Italian Department at Stanford, and we had some long conversation. And obviously the man is a very smart person. He has a big curriculum vitae. Went to Harvard, London School of Oriental and African Studies, and of course at Stanford, which makes him dear to my heart. But at the same time, he's one of those tortured souls that is willing and ready to defend every civil rights issues in the world, including China. And on China, he's particularly talking about Tibet, the Uyghurs, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Tiananmen Square, Liu Jiabao, who was, imprisoned by the regime, the Dalai Lama, Falun Gong, and all the Chinese.
It's a long list.
Yeah, it's a long list. And of course, we are dealing with a communist party who is still as hard as it was under Stalin or under Mao. So nothing has much changed except they have espoused crony capitalism. And at the same time, James embraces the idea from the American Chamber of Commerce and from the likes of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and everything, that everything is good, as long China will change when they get modernized enough, when they get wealthy enough, and we've been waiting for 30 years, and of course China is not changing. China is still a communist regime, and the people in China do not have the opportunities to express themselves, and when they do, they pay a dear price for it. So
look at Hong Kong now.
And he would not hand well. We know that. The only thing is to know how hard and when is she going to finally react. Right now, he's going to have to react because his party is expecting him to, but at the same time, he knows how terrible it's going to be on the international scene. So basically, Professor Millward is defending the status quo that we've had, especially the last 8 years under Obama, which is based on the Chamber of Commerce view that it will change, even though we know it doesn't change. It has not changed, and it will not change. And the communist Chinese are still the largest dealer of fentanyl, and they have direct dealing with the Mexican mafia. They are still doing patent infringement. They are still a danger in cybersecurity. They have the largest clandestine acquisition network, which they share with North Korea, Iran, Pakistan, and so on. They have their soft power with Cambodia, with Myanmar, with Pakistan, with Sri Lanka, and of course in Africa, which they have a very large footprint now. And then at the same time, we have companies like Google and others who are facilitating the repression in China thanks to their technology.
Yes.
And he's totally ignoring that because where we are now, we are in a very dangerous position. Every time we go on a pendulum from the far left trying to go back to the center, and you have that movement, it's a very difficult thing to do because A, our enemies have to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then B, our friends also have to understand it. And it's a very difficult thing to do. So is a kind of pie in the sky feel like, we need to be nicer and everything, and criticizing people in the administration with having a hard approach to it. It's more of the Obama policies that have not worked and the Bush policies before him. So this is why I was chomping at the bits.
Well, I'm glad you brought it all up, and I would ask you, do you think that a harder confrontational stance is called for at this time? I mean, we already have the sanctions in place, but his point was instead of measures that attack the country, just sanction those leaders in the Communist Party whose hands are on the levers and who are looking forward to being able to personally reap the benefits of their involvement with the regime, and put that kind of pressure on as an alternative to ship deployments on their along their waters. I'd like the military muscle being shown, but we're compromised, not having any base in the Philippines, actual working base. We have something in Cameron Bay, but we don't have ships in Taiwan. We're selling them the advanced.
Well, but that's not the Trump administration. That goes back to the Carter administration and Mr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a total disaster. Right.
But what would you like to see happening with the United States relationship with China?
What I would like to see happening, number one, is that there is not a gross mischaracterization of what the policy of the administration is, which unfortunately it's what is happening a lot at all levels of the mainstream media, especially in the Washington Post, because Mr. Steve Bezos, the owner, doesn't personally like the president. So I wish the media was a little more center and more balanced in their coverage of what is happening, and not just representing Wall Street and the Chamber of Commerce, who have a very short-term view, while the Chinese have a generational view. So we have to adopt a generational view, which is to understand what they're doing. And basically that's what the Trump administration has done from the get-go, which is, you know what, we are not going to accept what you're doing for the last 30 years because we can no longer afford to do so. It's hurting our economy. It's hurting our own citizens. And also at the same time, he has to show strength in regards to Pakistan, Iran, North Korea, and Sri Lanka and Burma, who are all customers of China and who are not particularly liking us. And if we do not do a strong negotiating point, what we will have is that we will encourage Xi to do what he's doing now. He's playing for time. And he's playing for time because he hopes that somebody like the former vice president will win the presidential election and then go back to the Obama days. And that's what they are baiting for time. I think it's the wrong way for the Chinese to go, but that's what they're doing. They renege on everything they agreed to in the first set of negotiation, and now they are trying to be a lot harder. Now, does that mean that Xi Jinping is doing it on his own, or does he have pressure from his own bureau? We don't know that yet. It's very possible.
But he does have support, domestic support within his party to follow the course he's on. He's on safe ground.
Yeah, it's easy when you have one guy that decide. You know, we are at a disadvantage because we are a democracy where everybody has an opinion.
But you're saying that that our discussions are undermining the effectiveness of the messaging that this administration is putting out. But it seems that
I'm not saying the discussion. I'm saying the way the discussions are reported.
But that reporting is not allowed to be covered in China. Only the leadership knows what is being said, and
true,
does it?
But everything that's being said in the U.S. is reported to Xi Jinping through their network of people that are listening in the United States.
Well, of course.
And when you go from the tens of thousands of Chinese students and all the other people that listen to what's happening in the U.S., believe me, they know what we're saying.
Oh, sure. We're an open society. We're discussing this openly. We discuss it openly. But the people within China don't know the kinds of discussions we're having out here, and so.
Well, don't underestimate the Chinese. I still go to China quite often. I live in Taiwan for 7 years, and the Chinese are a lot more knowledgeable than we would think.
So you're saying that the media is undermining the effectiveness of the current administration.
I'm saying that some people in the media are doing exactly that. And, you know, I can understand, even though I don't agree with it, when we're talking about domestic policies. But when we're talking about foreign policies versus potentially the largest opponents that we have, it could have very dire consequences. And we need to be to have an approach that's a little more balanced as far as our reporting policies on.
But isn't that up to the administration to be coherent?
The administration has been coherent on this.
I don't know.
I do. I mean, if you really look at the administration, what they've been saying from the get-go, they've been very coherent. Who has not been coherent about reporting on it has been the mainstream media. And that's where the issue is, because then you have people that have the impression that the administration is not being coherent. Well, actually, they have been very much coherent.
I can't agree with you there. Now, I'll tell you why.
We agree to disagree.
That's right. What has been reported, and if you're looking at all of the reports, what has been reported is that a statement of intent goes out, and then other statements come out which seem to qualify it or provide different motivation for what the stated policy is. I like it when there's consistency, and you hear the president say the same thing as the Secretary of State, same thing as the people further down the line, and they're all working in the same direction, going the same.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you on that, and then you're bringing a different issue, which is the first 2 years of the Trump administration versus the people that were imposed to him by the deep state, and that's a huge issue.
That is.
You had people that were trying to carry policies that were different than what the president were asking them to do.
Right. The president is elected to bring out
people that were trying to frame him for a soft coup. So we've had a president who has had, for example, in Syria, he has had to order strikes because some people in our administration were saying that Assad bombed people with chemicals, which we have found out since that it was not true. So Trump had to do bombings on this based on what his defense secretary and his State Department were telling him, which were false news. And so, from the get-go, especially the first 2 years, now it's starting to level off. But it's a very big issue, which was not automatically the doing of the presidential administration himself, but rather of the lifelong people that do work in the administration, and in this case, we're working overtly against the president's decisions.
That I have to agree with you there. What was needed, though, instead of sequestering them or even getting rid of them, is there should have been direction. This is the clear policy statement. This is the direction we're going to go. Yes, we understand what the contrast is between what you were doing before and what I am asking you or telling you to do now. But that wasn't coming out. It was
not coming out because they were trying to figure out who was working against the president's policy. If you remember, and very few people paid notice, but in 2017 in August, so that 2 years ago, the president left the White House for almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now we're hearing from the Department of Justice that they were actually sweeping for bugs left over by the Obama administration. So you had clearly people that were openly working against the elected administration of this country. And that is very worrisome. So you have actors within the states that are acting against the elected officials of the country and in favor of nefarious people that stays in the shadow, and that's very, very worrisome. But this is not exactly the same. You cannot blame the president for having to face probably the most hostile political climate a president has seen in the United States since the election of Abraham Lincoln. And hopefully it won't go as far as the result of the election of Abraham Lincoln, because that would be very serious. But it is, and that's the problem, is that you still have people out there trying to misrepresent what is being said, and that's why I was chomping on the bit.
Well, this is one of the problems that results the way that the media is mainstream media. And the way that media is reporting the events of the day or the week in terms of extreme left, extreme right, for, against. It's all binary. I was having this discussion with my brother-in-law on the phone over the weekend. He lives in D.C., and he works in the national security area, and he's happily employed, and he works. But he said that what needs to be done is have less of the and I was coming to this. I was explaining what I was doing with this program, being on now as a substitute host, and we were discussing about how there is no discussion of what needs to be done and why. It's all he said, she said, and these people are bad and I'm good, or the other way around. The discussion doesn't. It goes back to who the players are rather than what is the issue and where is the solution and what are the facts and what needs to get done. As you and I are discussing this now, it's much more understandable. But when you start putting it in terms of the political resistance or trying to build a case against one set of leaders versus another, then we start getting into basically a campaign for the next election. And of course, nationally, they're not going to ask us our opinion for who we want as president anyway. And we don't have anyone to vote on national policies in the Congress. So, it's all like entertainment to us. It's very serious for the whole world.
It's a dangerous form of entertainment.
It is. It is. I agree.
Because basically the media have become an entertainment industry rather than a reporting industry, and we have diverted. I do understand people that do not like the president. I don't care for a lot of the things he says. I think he's rude, he's uncouth, he's everything you want. But at least he has one redeeming value. He's trying to do what he said he was going to do. And of course, a lot of people, that goes against the grain for a lot of people that have made a career I don't know if you remember that old BBC show which was called Yes, Prime Minister.
No, I don't. I've just heard about it.
It's a show which showed that the Prime Minister could not govern without the civil servants inside the administration, and that they were actually the ones that were running everything. And then basically, when I'm looking at what's happening right now with the administration, it's very similar to that comedy, even though it was a comedy. It had a very serious side, which was that, politicians are politicians. They are basically actors. And then once in a while, you have somebody that wants to do the real thing that they promise, but they cannot do it. And unfortunately, we have had nice politicians. If you look at Gerald Ford or Jimmy Carter, they were very nice people. But they had terrible administrations, and a lot of the things they did, we're still living the consequences of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to kidnap the whole program on this, but thank you very much for taking my call.
Well, thank you, Frenchie. I appreciate your perspectives and your articulating the helping to articulate the issues, because these are complex, and we are talking about as much about the issues. We're talking about the way that we receive our information as much as we're talking about the issues themselves. And, of course, we're right here on the front line. We're sitting on the fence. We're like a can on the fence. So, it's of concern to us. And I want to thank you very much for calling today.
You're most welcome, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
It's 5:31, 5:32, and it's time to take our seventh inning stretch here on Tall Tales. We'll be right back after this.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
You've worked hard and you want to move up, but how are you going to do that? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll have some advice on how to prepare yourself for promotion.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, inviting you to try their garlic roasted Dungeness crab, featuring 2 pounds of Dungeness crab marinated with a secret garlic sauce and served with special chow mein noodles. Visit Mezcla in Agana and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Yeah, I was taking a look online and saw some highlights of the Orioles baseball game over the weekend. Their series with the Yankees, and it's like, wow, they can actually win a game. And so, Thank you very much for that, for the seventh inning stretch there. And thank you, Frenchie, for your call. I was going to talk a bit about this, not the particular issue, but about the way that the public discussion seems to be just an ongoing campaign. And it just hurts because we're not discussing issues. We're discussing campaign strategy. We're in campaign strategy. It's not doing us any good here. Got another caller on line 1. Welcome to Tall Tales.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jack.
Yeah. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, I was listening to Frenchie, and I got to tell you, he's absolutely 100% correct. And if John Anderson was alive today, he would be penciling in his Rolodex Frenchie's number, and he would offer that guy his own talk show. But not only is he articulate, he's on point. And he, it's just amazing that when you hear somebody that you click with and you understand and they put it into perspective in which the average person can digest, it's really eye-opening. So hats off to Frenchie. He's right on point, and I love his accent. I love his presentation as a caller. And maybe that guy should get his own show, because that was very knowledgeable, and I listened to it. And we could also reflect on it, on how government and politics is done here on Guam. And what he said is actually correct. When he talked about the bureaucracy, he says it's the bureaucracy that controls the pendulum swing. And that's more prevalent here in our small, tiny republic here called Guahan. That it is the bureaucracy that controls the pendulum. It isn't, your average mill private citizen working in the private sector. It isn't the small business owner. It's the bureaucracy. It's the government bureaucracy that controls policy, be it economic or social, on this island. And so when you look at it on a national front, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Who's pulling all these strings? I mean, we're supposedly having a great economy nationwide, but if you listen to the other side, it's doom and gloom. And he's perfectly correct about the China. In my opinion, he was perfectly right on point about China, because when you go to China and you read the news there, it's like there's no crime.
Mm-hmm.
But in real life, they have people being stabbed. In real life, you have really atrocities being done in China, but the media doesn't report on it.
No, it's a communist state. It is.
He's right on point, and it was joyful listening to him, and I hope he becomes a frequent contributor to the conversations that we're having, not only nationally, but also here in Guam. The guy, this is the first time I ever heard him. I don't know whether he's a long-time contributor, but I hope that him and people like him continue to call and let the local radio stations get informed about this aspect, about policies, about standards, about academia, about everything. And he did so in such a small window of time. It gave you a glimpse, and he actually gave his Surda Vida himself. So he has credibility, and I hope that whoever's out there listening, will reach out to him and try to convince him to contribute more, because he made a lot of sense, and I just called in support of him.
Well, thank you.
On the other hand, Daryl,
go ahead, say it.
It's my fault, because first impressions have always been my downfall, and I knew you like way back in the mid '80s and things like that. You don't know me, but I know you because you drove around that pretentious little car. Was it an MG Triumph or something?
Pretentious.
That really
pretentious. I learned how to drive on one in 1964. That was actually my dad's first new car, the one I was driving around in, And that was a successor to one that my dad bought back in 1964, and I learned how to drive on the old Harmon runway. It wasn't pretentious. I came back in '82, and the family dog was sleeping on top of the rag top, and my dad just had it parked in the yard. And I begged him for that car. And when the dog finally fell through the soft top on the car, my dad threw the keys to me and said, "Go ahead and fix it up and drive it." But it's just fun to drive on an island like this. And pretentious? Yeah, I'd be sitting there at the ITC intersection getting soaked in a rain shower in rush hour traffic, and I'd be singing with a big smile on my face. There was nothing pretentious about it. I just had having myself a blast. Now, you'd rather have me driving a Tercel? I mean, really, between a MGB and a Tercel. I mean, and I even got that thing fixed up, and it was in the Golden Salute Liberation Parade.
Yeah, I don't think the Tercel was even invented back then.
No, I had my Datsun pickup, my B2 1300 or whatever it was. I had that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, that's one of I got a lot of major failures and a lot of major problems, but that's one of them is that I judge a book by its cover. It's something that I need to get over, but whenever I hear you, whenever I see you, I just I really don't like this guy. The only two-seater you should be driving is either a motorcycle or a pickup truck.
I know my license has endorsement for motorcycle. I've had it ever since I was living in the States, and I drove a motorcycle. And I drove a motorcycle when I was in high school, overseas. But I don't drive a motorcycle. I ride a bicycle.
Yeah. So, anyways, just hearing your voice and just seeing that's all that sticks in my mind.
Okay.
And it's my fault. It has nothing to do with you. I know you have grown. You have matured.
Really? I don't know. I think I'm trying to crawl back into one or another womb.
Yeah. Who else does that? The one that runs the school. What's his name?
You talking about Rand Kaufman?
Randy Kaufman. Yeah.
Why would his name come to mind when you didn't give me much of a hint at all?
It's just you two. It's just both of you guys just drive me crazy.
Okay.
That's all I think. I said, is this life choice was driving this car?
Yeah, it is my life choice. Because I'm not afraid to make my choices, and then I stick by them. I don't.
Even though you're wrong.
Oh, you can think I'm wrong. That's okay. That's why I've said at the beginning of taking Bob's chair here. I mean, he asked me to come in here, right? I was happy staying home and listening to him, but he asked me to come in here. Ray did too. So first thing I said is, if you think I'm a horse's, call me and say so. That's all right. I can take it. There's people who don't like me for whatever the reason, and I can understand that. Yeah. As long as they got a reason, or maybe they don't have to have a reason. That's okay.
That's all water under the bridge. Now, but I listen to you. I don't usually call up because I'm just. The traffic is just horrible. It's getting worse now that the school's about to start. But I heard a little bit of a show about the roads here in Guam and logistics, and I heard you also about flooding, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So two things. Since we were kids, the formula for distance has always been D equals time times speed. That hasn't changed. And so the problem we have with traffic here is that they seem to approach that the answer is more traffic lights. And that's not how it is. You need to reconceptualize how we do traffic. And maybe there needs to be less traffic lights and more of those turnabouts.
Yes.
Turnabouts like up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Circles. Yeah.
Yeah, circle. Yeah. More of those and less traffic lights. Or, there's a logistics thing that we just seem to get wrong here in Guam when it comes to traffic. So I think they need to approach that a little bit more with some. We need to bring somebody in here that understands distance equals.
They do. We've got them. They were all grandfathered in as engineers up at DPW, and they've been hanging on to those jobs. And you know, every one of those projects is vetted by the Federal Highway Administration. It's got to fit within the highway standards that are published. If they don't fit in those standards, they're not approved. And I've gone through this. They do allow roundabouts, but they don't, for some reason, and the main reason is because the government of Guam doesn't want to spend money to acquire property that it takes to put one of those roundabouts in. But yeah, they work great.
I know, but the roundabouts that I've seen, they're not that big. I mean, they encompass like one four-way stops, four-way. But I understand why there's some issues, like when we're talking about commerce and transportations and logistics going from Anderson down to Big Navy. I understand. I think that the parkway that they're building through Tijan might solve a lot of those issues. But for the rest of us commuters, I don't think more stoplights is the answer. I think we need to replace. Somebody needs to come in here, that understands logistics and do it correctly. But and another thing before.
Don't you think the military is going to do that when they start moving a whole lot of hardware from the north side of the island, from the port to the north side of the island because of an additional base there? The Seabees tried to build a road from Naval Mag to what is now NICTAM's back in 1945, using the area coming up through Menangan Hills. You know, the high.
They're still. I mean, there's some plans out there also going through Jodnia, like you said, through,
and then up through Orda, and
Another thing I wanted to touch on is this flooding issue,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the problem isn't construction. It's really we need to distinguish between riparian rights and appropriation rights, and I think it's the rights of where the water is going, who controls the water when it flows on the ground. Do you have the right to divert that water? And there's a lot of legal things that needs to come by. I don't think it's a matter of it rains and the water flows this way and there's construction here that diverts the water. I think there's a really core issue about riparian rights and appropriation rights. And I think when we deal with that, when the rain hits the ground and it starts to flow, who owns that water? Who has the right to divert that water? And what circumstances? So it's really a property rights
Jack,
issue. It's not really a construction issue or an environmental issue.
I don't think that ever occurred to anyone.
No, it did. It occurred. It was before Mark Forbes got ill. He was addressing this. He was contemplating. He says he was going to do some research about it, and he became ill about it. So
No, but that's something that has to do with whether you can collect that water and make it like a private you could sell it. Let's say bank it.
No. But it's also the diversion. If the rain hits the ground, who owns that water? Who controls it? If you're at the bottom of the hill and somebody owns the property at the top of the hill, and they all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to build a dam, what happens to that water that's supposed to come to your property? You know, it's a bigger issue, and it requires people that understand whether or not Guam is a riparian right area or is it appropriation right area. In other words, the government owns the water regardless. So I think that's going to be the next combat issue, and if you address that, then you can address the issue about flooding. Because right now you can't really do anything about it, and mitigation is just about recompensating somebody that lost something during a flood or something like that. But we're not even dealing with that. The reason why I say that is because remember, is it what is that big hotel or condo down there in Agana?
The one down by the outflow of the river by Johnson Theater?
No. Yeah. What's the name of that big?
No.
Lupang?
No. It's I'm not sure what the name of it is. I can't remember right now, but
okay,
it's.
So remember when they first built that? One of the requirements was they were supposed to have a public restroom at that corner.
Yeah.
And before they even installed this, they had factors in there that this place is going to be constantly flooding. So one of the requirements for that public, it's supposed to be there. It's supposed to be maintained by the people who own that hotel. Next thing you know, a couple of years later, they tear down the public restroom because it was constantly flooding and things like that, and they just replaced it with a little picnic area, and that left us with no public restrooms.
Are you talking about it's the area right along the outfall of that river? It's basically it's the underground river that runs from Harmon Sink along the cliff line, the base of the cliff line, and it comes out by Ben Franklin, or now the Continental.
Yeah.
United. What is it? Docomo, right? Has that building now, and it comes out and it goes over by under the Orleans Plaza, and then it goes out to the ocean there, and that's
Anyways, before that, there were permits that was granted to that establishment, to that hotel. One of the conditions was that they would have that public restroom, and they would maintain it. And so now, there's no restroom there. There's nothing to maintain. It looks like they got away with a lot of stuff, and
there's a lot of law that's not
a bad way to do policies. Is a trade-off like that. So, anyways, I hear your music. But
Jack,
good luck, because I'm hearing traffic, brother.
Thank you very much for the call, and enjoy that traffic out there. It's a beautiful day. Okay, that was Jack, and we'll be back with more Tall Tales after, and the last roundup here right after this.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam. Parents, start your child's school year right with healthiness and fun. Complete your child's immunizations, annual physical, dental, or eye exam at FHP and receive a free gift for each exam visit. Perfect for back to school. Valid from July 15 to August 31st or while supplies last. Visit their website or Facebook page for more details. Call 646-5825 and press 2 to schedule an appointment today. Most private insurance accepted. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
And welcome back. For the last, got about 7.5 minutes here, 7 minutes left in today's show. Thank you, Jack, for your call. I didn't think that the question of riparian versus appropriation rights for water was the problem with flooding. I mean, it may be in a couple of areas, but to me, as a user of the rights of way, we build these 100-foot wide paved areas and we run them for miles, and then when the water falls, it's going to go somewhere, and it's going to go onto what's remaining of the right of way, and then it's going to divert off into private land or maybe a public injection well or ponding basin, at least in the north. Down south it's going to go to a river, and it's going to go out to the ocean. It's going to go somewhere. But when you build the road and you put the culverts in for the side roads, and you don't pull you have people out there cutting the grass every couple of weeks, and they don't, but there's no requirement to rake up the debris, and it just gets flushed down and gets stuck at the entrance of the next culvert. Well, that has nothing to do with riparian versus appropriation rights for water. It has everything to do with pulling the branches and dead dog and the cut up grass and its root ball out of the culvert, the entrance of the culvert, and then go down to the next culvert and do the same thing. And specifically in front of GPA, the GPA area up on Marine Drive, just north of or north coming out of Dedido, headed north, right in front of GPA. There's 4 little culverts, and each one of them is hopelessly blocked. And I just can't understand. That's flooding on Marine Drive in full view of everybody, and it's not even hard to get to. And so that kind of flooding, flooding of large areas like, neighborhoods and whatnot, those are supposed to be dealt with in the building permitting process and the subdivision law. Those are all supposed to be dealt with. Where's the water going to go when it falls on this area and you're proposing to have a high density, quarter-acre lots, and you're putting in roads, and this area is scheduled for dense development. Engineers at Public Works are supposed to examine the proposals and deal with it. The same way they deal with how is the terrain going to allow the collection of waste for GWA to pump out. Well, anyway, that's the deal. I was looking on Facebook Live, and just the last couple of minutes of today's show, my computer keeps crashing, and so I wasn't able to get to some of the comments. I turn back and I look at it, and it's crashed again. But the comments by Pierre Terrine seems to be be interesting concerning gun control, and then Nate Horn has got and Andrew Camacho got into it with talking about how do you spur action by the government to fill potholes, and so they were going back and forth. There was talk about a pothole turning into a speed bump, and spray painting. I don't know if it's a male sex organ represented in spray paint, or there's one laid on the ground and then it's spray painted, but next to potholes in order to get the government to pave the road, and then paint job on your truck, and then Joey Tovis totally agrees with Frenchie and Jack. I'm happy to hear that. I think that they are both articulate, and they add much to the discussion, because we're being hosed by perspective when we need to be hosed with facts, just reporting, not commentary within the facts, and telling us how to think about things. Ken sends a link. Ken Leon Guerrero sends a link about how Governor Leon Guerrero has been making her position on the business privilege tax clear on a YouTube link that he put up on Facebook with this show. And let's see. In a moment here, Pierre Terrine says red flag laws have a lot of issues. One, according to the Constitution and Supreme Court, U.S. citizens have the right to own guns for self-defense. Sure, self-defense, but not offense, right? Second Amendment does not allow the government to decide who owns a gun. There are laws, just like the laws here on Guam. The government does decide who owns a gun legally, because you have to get a permit, and you have to sit for a background check here on Guam. And if it's unconstitutional, then why hasn't anybody taken the government of Guam to court and said, we don't need to be doing this? You can't tell us who, you don't get to decide. Red flags are a step for gun confiscation and curbs on rights to carry. If there's a reason, that's why it's sent to a court. And the court has to determine whether a person's civil and individual rights are being unreasonably compromised. But that's all the time we have for today. I'll be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Don't forget, Ray Gibson will be here at 6 o'clock in the morning for his program. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, and wishing you a very, very pleasant evening. Bye.